Welcome to Mrs. Law's class. In this video, I'm going to review with you how to factor. So factoring means to write as a multiplication statement. Now, when we factor, the first thing that we want to do is to see if there's a greatest common factor, or GCF, and factor that out first. Once you've done that, then you will proceed to other factoring techniques. So these first two examples we're going to take a look at have a GCF. So we're going to find the GCF of this polynomial, and then we're going to factor it out. Now, factoring means that we're going to divide each term by that common factor, or the greatest common factor. So in the first example, we have 6x minus 32y. So between the two numbers, the coefficients, we have the greatest common factor is 2. And that's it, because there's no variable that is in common. So we're going to divide both the first and the second term by 2. So 6x divided by 2. Oh, sorry, first we place the 2 on the outside. So we're going to go 6x divided by that 2, which would make it 3x. And then negative 32y divided by 2 would give us negative 16y. And then close your bracket. You can check by multiplying this in to see if you get what you started with. So 2 times 3x would be 6x, and then 2 times 16y would be negative 32y. So you know that you've now factored this out correctly. All right, so for the next one, our greatest common factor. So look at your coefficients first. So we can see that 5 goes into all three of these numbers, 10, negative 5, and 25. And then we want to take a look at the variables and take the smallest variable, so exponent. So the first one is y to the 1. So we're going to take y. So this equals 5y. That's our greatest common factor. And we're going to divide each of these three terms by 5y. So we have 10y divided by 5y, which is 2. Negative 5y squared divided by 5y is negative y. And then 25y cubed divided by 5y is plus 5y squared. And then we close our brackets. And again, you can check to see if this is correct. So if we distribute the 5y back in to the brackets, we get 5y times 2, which is 10y. 5y times negative y is negative 5y squared. 5y times 5y squared is plus 25y cubed. So we have factored it out correctly. All right, let's take a look at the next type of factoring technique. So if we have a trinomial, which is 3 terms, and it looks like this form here, x squared plus bx plus c. So if you want to factor something like this, what we want to do is we want to find two numbers that multiply to the c, which is our constant number. And those two same numbers have to add to b, which is our middle coefficient with the x. Now, regardless of the type of expression, the first thing we always want to do is actually factor or remove the common factor first, and then we continue factoring. But what I want to focus on right now is just how to factor a trinomial. So if you take a look at this first example, we have x squared plus 10x plus 24. There is no greatest common factor, so we're going to go straight to factoring this using this method that I just outlined above. So this is going to equal, we're going to open up two brackets. Okay, so we're going to open up two brackets to create two binomials. So this first term is x squared, so we know this has to be x and x, because x times x is x squared. Now we want to find two numbers that multiply to 24, so that's our c value, okay, but it has to add to 10x. So if I take 24, the two factors that do that are 6 and 4. So 6 times 4 is 24, and 6 plus 4 gives me that middle coefficient, which is 10. So these two numbers get placed inside the brackets as x plus 6 and x plus 4. All right, let's try another one. So here again, we have a trinomial. There's no greatest common factor, so we're going to go straight to factoring this as two binomials. We want to find two numbers that multiply to our c, which is negative 45, and it has to add to -4. So those two numbers will be -9 times 5, which is -45, and -9 plus 5 is going to be -4. So these numbers that we see go directly into our binomial. So we're going to have x minus 9 and x plus 5. X at the beginning because we have an x squared. All right, our last example, we can see that actually there is a GCF. So I want to take that out first. So they're all going to be divisible by 3. So we're going to take out 3. And then we have x squared plus 3x minus 4. So we're going to divide all of the terms by 3. All right, so now we're going to check to see, can we find two numbers that multiply to -4, which is my c value, and adds to 3. Okay, so those two numbers would be +4 and -1. So 4 times -1 is -4, and 4 plus -1 gives me this middle term, which is 3. So we're going to write and carry down the 3 from before, and we're going to open up two sets of brackets to create two binomials. X will be in the first, as the first term for both brackets, and then we're going to put those numbers in. It'll be x plus 4 and x minus 1. All right, we're going to take a look at one more technique. So this next one here is called factor by grouping. So some polynomials, if you look at these ones here, they don't have a common factor in all of the terms. So not all of these have a, not all of them have x, b, and y. So what we have to do is we have to have a different method to factor something like this. So these polynomials can, however, sometimes be factored by something called grouping. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to group terms that do have a common factor. So if you take a look at the way that it's written right now, the first two terms have nothing in common, and neither does the last two. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch these middle two terms. Now sometimes you can group it however you want. So we're going to try it this way here. We're going to take the ax, and we're going to move the bx. It says plus xb. We're going to put that as our second term, but I'm actually going to write this as bx. And then I'm going to take my negative by and put that as my next third term. And then I'm going to put minus, instead of ya, I'm going to put ay. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the first two terms, and then we're going to take a look at the second set of two terms. So from the first two terms, I can factor out an x. So we place divide by x. So ax divided by x is a, bx divided by x is plus b. And I'm going to close my bracket. From the last two terms, the by and the negative ay, I can see that they both have a common y, and they actually both have a negative sign. So I'm actually going to factor that out too. So I'm going to take out negative y. So negative by divided by negative y is going to be positive b. And then negative ay divided by negative y is going to give me plus a. So what we can see is now they both have the same factor here. They both have an a plus b. Okay, so now instead of this just being a monomial or just a single letter, I'm actually going to factor out this whole a plus b. So I'm going to take that out. That will be a plus b. So when I factor that out of the first term, now when I talk about the first term, I talk about this giant first term here. If I factor a plus b out, I'm going to have my x left. So I'm going to open up a bracket, and I'm going to have x. And then I have an a plus b in the second big term here, and I'm going to have a minus y left. And then I'm going to close my bracket. This is similar to factoring a GCF. It's just that my GCF here happens to be a binomial GCF, a plus b. All right, let's try that again. Now in this second example, I can see that there's some commonality in my first two terms already. So I'm actually going to leave it as it is. So from here, I can see that my GCF is 3, and both of them have an m. So I'm going to take out the smaller m, factor that out, open up a bracket. So 6m squared divided by 3m is 2m. Positive 15 divided by 3m is plus 5. Okay, and then when I go to my second term, or my second two terms, these last two here, I can see that it also has a 2m and a 5, which is actually what I have in this first bracket here. So what I want to do is I can see that they both have a negative, which I'm going to factor out. So I'm going to put minus 1. So therefore, negative 2m divided by negative 1, open up my second bracket, is going to be positive 2m. And then negative 5 divided by negative 1 is going to be plus 5. Close my bracket. So again, I have a binomial GCF, which I'm going to factor out. So this will be 2m plus 5. And then what I'm left with is the 3m. And then I will have a minus 1. And we're going to close our brackets. And that's how we factor by grouping.